There are a number of different ways the rook and the queen can work together. The easiest and simplest way is to just stick the rook in front of the queen and use it as a battering ram, so to speak. So in this example, we have a lesser valued piece being guarded by a more valuable piece, and we simply just take the rook and use it as a battering ram to capture that piece, which black in this case forces white to a decision. Now in this next example here, we're using the same concept. Black is essentially using the rook as a battering ram and putting pressure on white. White has a queen on c2 that's defending the e2 square, but it can't defend this here because the piece is overloaded and it's protected by the queen. The same concept here. You don't need to have just a battering ram. You can actually use a triangle battering ram too. We have right here where the rook on e8 can overlaps the pressure of with the queen on a6, and that puts pressure on the e2 square. So essentially all black needs to do when it's their turn is take the rook and overload the weaker piece. So essentially black is going to overload with the weaker piece, which is the rook right here. So black will take the rook and move it to e2. So typically speaking, you want the rook or the weaker piece in front of the queen. Now there's an exception to this rule, and that is when you're looking for checkmate patterns. Now we all know when the opposing king is in the center, it has 8 potential moves. But when the king moves outside of the center, those moves are reduced, and those are some checkmating patterns that we can use, or situations we can use the rook and the queen. Take, for example, this example where it's white to move. In theory, black's king has 8 different spots it can move. And now, if we look at the rook on h8, that blocks 3 of those spots. If we look at the rook on f8, that blocks 3 more. And the queen on d5 blocks another space. What white would like to do is end the game here. Now, typically speaking, when we're using this as a battering ram, we put the rook in front of the queen, but in this case, we're looking to end the game. We want to put the queen in front of the rook, which is the opposite of what we do in other situations. So in this case, we take the queen on d5 and move it to the f3 square, and that puts the king in checkmate. Now let's take a look at another game situation here. This time it's black's turn to move. If you'd like, hit pause for a second and see if you can figure this one out. Okay, this board has more pieces on it, but the same concept applies. We're looking at the rook on g8 for black, and the rook's blocking these spots right here. Essentially, what black needs to do to win is take the queen and put it in front of the rook. So take the queen on f3 and move it to the g2 square, and that puts the king in checkmate and ends the game. Now let's take a look at another example here. It's again black to move. See if you can figure this one out. Okay, we have the rook on h6 for black, and that's blocking this spot right here. And then we have the queen on d6, and black, to win the game, simply needs to take the queen on d6 and move it to the h2 square right there, and that puts white in checkmate. And we'll take a look at one final example here. This situation involves a combination of moves. It's black's turn. If you'd like, you can hit pause and see if you can figure this one out. In this example, we use a combination of both situations. Black's king has a pawn on g2 protecting it, and what we're doing is we're trying to figure out how we combine the rook and the queen. What black will do is take the rook and move it to the g2 square, and using the battering ram principle, that puts the king in check. Well, that forces the king to move to only one spot, which is the h1 square. The king does, Now it's black's turn again. Black takes the rook and puts the king in check. The king can only move to one spot. That's G1. Now it's time for black to use the queen to set up the checkmate. So black takes the queen on B2 and moves it to the G2 square, and that sets up checkmate. And that wraps up our tutorial of how some different ways you can use the rook and queen to work together. Thank you for watching.